Well, joining me now with more on the space is Ray Wang. He's the CEO of Constellation Research. Ray, it's great to have you on the show. You are our AI expert, and as Time names AI Person of the Year, the architects of this. Who are the architects that stand out to you in the space?
Well, of course, first off is Jensen. He had the chips that made it work. He's the one that actually enabled everybody to actually build on top. And he had a vision that started way early with GPUs, and that gave him a huge advantage. And then, of course, you have other chip makers along the way. But then on the other end of the spectrum are model builders. And if you look at OpenAI, their ability to actually hit that consumer moment. They're at about 800 million users, getting to 1 billion. That's actually a huge number, and we're going to see that take over in terms of adoption and use. But all along the way, there have been people building AI, and the challenge has always been trying to make sure that this is a consumer play, an enterprise play, a government play, and these folks really made it stand out. And so across the board, you have what they call computing providers, Microsoft, Satya's big investment in OpenAI made a role. If you look about Google, their ability to go from chip to the ability to get to agents and apps, Oracle playing a role in the background, of course, Amazon making that happen. And of course, if you think about the models, Meta, Anthropic, and of course, X with Elon Musk, those have all been a huge area in terms of building that development. And then, of course, how do you make the chips? And that came through TSMC and ASML, which drive that capability.
Expand. As we get ready for 2026, Ray, what are you going to be watching in this space?
Well, I'm really looking at what's going to happen to the secondary and tertiary forces around AI. And when we think about that coupled with foreign direct investment into the US, what we see are, of course, data centers, we see distribution, we see energy and power plants, precision manufacturing, and of course, a set of dual-use technologies. How that all plays out is really going to reshape the American economy, and that's what I want to know. And then the impacts in terms of the second and third order impacts to the world in terms of what it means for a job, what it means to human, where does purpose come into play? Every organization has an opportunity to become what we call an AI exponential, which is taking advantage of AI to get 10x, 100x, 1000x gains. It might seem impossible today, but we're starting to see companies emerge that are building that future.
You know, it's interesting, every single story that we've done from a business perspective this year on our show, NYSE Live, AI has been a part of that conversation, how businesses are using it to innovate, what it means for the consumer. As you referenced earlier, we had the Fed decision yesterday in the afternoon, and the Fed actually raising its growth forecast for next year, Ray, and downgrading its inflation outlook. That would be a positive for the economy and persistent with what it needs to achieve in its dual mandate of maximum employment and stable prices. What is AI doing to the economy?
Well, we're getting a massive efficiency expect, and so GDP growth is expected to be 2.3% for 2026. What that's saying is, as the job market cools and productivity goes up, the question is, what is it going to mean in terms of the targets and the metrics? What is the number for revenue per employee people are going to be expecting on the street? What is the profitability per employee that companies are going to look at? We've got companies today that are doing 200 million in revenue with 20 people. Is that going to be the norm? And are there going to be more companies, less companies? I think that's the questions we're going to be asking into 2026.
AI has the capacity to make things more efficient. I think you could argue that that helps growth. Now, with inflation, that outlook coming down from the Fed, do you see that it has a deflationary or a disinflation affect the use of AI?
I see it as de-inflationary, and what's going to happen over time is that productivity curve, just like we saw the productivity curve of digitization, is going to go really, it's going to have a hockey stick effect. And that hockey stick effect is going to start with a few companies who started early. You're going to see companies that actually take advantage of that gain. So the companies that are actually taking all these repetitive processes that are in place and achieving what we call decision velocity, they're the ones that are going to win because they're using AI to make faster decisions. It gives them more steps, more moves, more opportunities. That's where we're going to see why companies are going to beat other companies, especially in terms of performance over time.
You mentioned all of the tech titans, which I think is important to point out, Ray. GE Vernova, that's in energy, power, generator, maker, if you will. Its CEO, Scott Strazik, joined us live on our show just yesterday as that stock hit a 52-week high. The shares were up some 16% in yesterday's session. That company raising its multi-year outlook, doubling its dividend, upping its share repurchase authorization, and AI is at the crux of that story. You referenced it earlier, but the knock-on effects in the energy space and the amount of power that it's going to take to fuel these technology companies in their push to AI, how do you quantify that?
Well, it's actually pretty easy. The funny thing about AI, it's going to make physical assets even more valuable. Energy, water, real estate. We're already seeing that come into play. And so the knock-on effects are, there is no AI without power, chips, data, right? And these three things are going to be the foundation in terms of what we do next, whether it's going to be how companies are going to be run or it's how we're going to look at research. And so we've got to be looking at power companies that have the capability to deliver on small modular reactors or new types of power. So whether it's renewables or whether it's nuclear, they're going to play a role. We have to think about water sources. They're going to be important, not just in chip production, but also in what we do in pharmaceuticals, what they're going to impact, because there's going to be a war for water. All these things are coming back to the basic resources around assets, and now we're actually looking at asset-backed models as opposed to just pure digital and pure capital-based models.
Ray Wang, CEO of Constellation Research, thank you as always for joining in. So glad we could get your insight as time today at the New York Stock Exchange talks its Person of the Year, the Architects of AI.